David, it's a Sunday afternoon, and what could possibly drag us into the office?
A man called Trump.
A man called Trump with a social media platform called Truth. He's been on it. What's he said about Starmer?
Keir Starmer will resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He failed badly on two very important subjects, immigration and energy, open North Sea oil, ! I wish him well, President DJT.
Yeah, that was a little while ago, and so we thought we'd do a quick take to work out what's going on. I mean, this is pretty unprecedented, isn't it?
Well, you would expect a resignation to be announced by Downing Street, or perhaps by the Prime Minister, not by the President of the United States.
Yeah, and it's worth saying that as we record, the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has not resigned. That may change by the time you're listening to this. It may not, of course. He has spent the weekend in Chequers, his country residence, contemplating his future, but just extraordinary for the American president to take to Truth Social and announce his resignation as if it's fact.
Yes, and an extraordinary intervention in UK politics, you could argue, but clearly aimed at the American audience at the same time, because he points out immigration and energy, two things he has consistently hammered Keir Starmer on. But that tells us that he hasn't perhaps given any thought to the man who might succeed Keir Starmer, who handsomely defeated people who share Donald Trump's views on immigration.
Yeah, it's only a short post, but there's quite a lot in there because there are those two talking points, as you say, immigration and energy. Those are the two policy areas where Trump has repeatedly said, I mean, he told me on the phone a few weeks ago, those are the two issues that he raised. He's repeatedly said he thinks Britain's going down the wrong track on energy. He thinks they should be drilling more in the North Sea and on immigration. And so he's brought those two things up again. But, I mean, it's not as if Trump's got any inside knowledge of what's going on in Chequers or in Downing Street. He's spitballing, isn't he?
But he likes to create the impression he has inside knowledge, and that plays well with his own base. It convinces them that Donald Trump is the major player in world affairs.
Yeah, so I think what's happened is he's read the morning papers. He may have been briefed by some of his staff who have said to him correctly that Keir Starmer is on the rocks, and maybe by this week he will resign. And he's just thought, well, I'll just post my thoughts on Truth Social. It is extraordinary, isn't it, for an American president to make such a pronouncement, to interfere in the politics of another country in this way.
Yes, and at a time when Keir Starmer is on the ropes, if indeed he's about to go, this is quite the culmination to what was at one stage quite the bromance. Of course, a bromance that went south very quickly once Trump decided to go to war with Iran.
Yeah, it was a bromance. Let's reflect on it, because it was an unlikely friendship. I mean, I don't think at that level world leaders are ever really friends, are they? It's all about personal interest. And if the interests align, then they will look like they're friends. But certainly the chemistry between Starmer and Trump in those early days of the second term, Trump's second term, was surprisingly good.
And it wasn't just the words, Mark. It was the body language. I'm no body language expert, but remember that moment when Starmer first came to the Oval Office to present him with the letter from the King?
Out it came.
He kept tapping him on the shoulder, seeking his reassurance.
Yeah.
I would describe it as Keir Starmer attempting to ingratiate himself with Donald Trump because he wanted Donald Trump to like him very much. And then when the President did carry out that unprecedented second state visit, you remember the press conference where Keir Starmer had a go at Hamas in Gaza and Trump slapped him on the back? Yeah. It was a very tactile relationship for a while.
Yeah, but it soon went south with Iran, as you say, when Starmer stuck to his guns and said America would not be allowed to use bases in the UK for that initial military action in Iran. And since then, it has been pretty problematic. But he's not alone. I mean, look where it is with Meloni right now. Absolutely terrible, the Italian Prime Minister. So one by one, Trump is upsetting all of his friends, former friends, across Europe.
And speaking of European leaders, how could we forget St. Patrick's Day when the Irish Prime Minister, Taoiseach Micheál Martin, was in the Oval Office and Trump compared Keir Starmer with Winston Churchill. And it took the Irish Prime Minister to come to the defence of the British Prime Minister. Anyone who has even the slightest understanding of the complexities of the British-Irish political relationship will understand how significant a moment that was.
Yeah, I did try and call the president a bit earlier on, such as the weird way that we cover this particular White House. He didn't answer, so I wasn't able to ask him why he thought this was the moment to insert himself into the troubling politics, as he would see it, of the United Kingdom. But let's see what happens over the days ahead. And very briefly, it is worth mentioning that if Starmer does go and Andy Burnham takes over, or Wes Streeting, I mean, these are people who have absolutely no profile at all over here, do they?
And they hold no different position in relation to immigration and energy than Keir Starmer did. And I think Trump is going to struggle to get his head around that. But I've got to ask you, Mark, if this is the end of the Starmer, is there a Trump-Starmer moment that stands out in your memory?
I think it's probably the one right at the beginning where Starmer and Downing Street decided to play the Trump card up front and pulled that letter out from the King. I mean, that was a very, very high-risk move, because there was a lot of time between that moment and when the state visit actually happened. Time for things to get rough, and they did, but ultimately it paid off. You know, it was a successful visit, so it was quite a smart move by Starmer, that.
For me, it was the G7, not this year, but last year, when they signed the trade deal.
And it fell on the ground, yeah.
Exactly. And Keir Starmer ended up on his hands and knees picking up the pieces of paper containing the trade deal. If ever there was a moment that made him look like he was an aide to the President of the United States, that was the moment.
The highs and lows of Trump-Starmer. There we go. So that is our quick take on another strange day in Trump world. Remember, if you've not caught it yet, listen to our first Trump 100 Insider episode, Martha and James, on Trump's toxification of sport.
We'll be back on Tuesday. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.